is an audio download about Scottish football from BBC Scotland. I'm Jeff Webster. For questions of use, please go to our website, bbc.co.uk/sportscotland. This podcast is taken from the Sunday Sportsound programme of May the 29th. I was joined by sports writer Hugh MacDonald and a trio of footballers, Jim Goodwin, John Rankin and Darren O'Dea. We heard from a man who knows Celtic's new manager Brendan Rodgers well, Harry Redknapp. We touched on a thrilling Champions League final and spoke to Robert Snodgrass, who was celebrating Hull's promotion to the English Premier League. Firstly, though, thoughts turn to the addition of a new head of performance at Celtic.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Radio Scotland.
Glenn Driscoll has been announced as the new head of performance at Celtic as Brendan Rodgers' backroom team takes shape. Driscoll worked with Rodgers at Swansea City and Liverpool, as had Chris Davis, who was appointed assistant manager earlier in the week. Hugh, Brendan's team, it's obviously familiar, but that's always the case with managers, isn't it?
Well, something you would think it was, but it wasn't really the case with Ronnie Deila, and I think that's an interesting thing because, you know, Ronnie Deila came in and I think was given John Collins and John Kennedy. I can't see that Ronnie would have had too much of an input there. He certainly had his own backroom staff with physios and fitness coaches, and I think this is... you know, in a way, it's an expected thing, but I think it's quite a significant thing because it shows that right from the off, Brendan Rodgers has got a very sort of open remit. They've obviously said to him, listen, whoever you want, you get. He's got them very, very quickly, so there's obviously been talks going on. They wouldn't have got them cheaply either because these guys were in work and they've got good pedigrees. So I think it's quite it's a quiet statement. It's not a shout out statement, but I think it's a statement of Rodgers has said, well, I'll appoint my deputy, I'll appoint my head of performance, I'll appoint my staff, I'm in charge of the football operation, and I think that's that you know, quietly significant.
I think it's the first time, Hugh, as well in a number of years that Celtic haven't went for the cheap option, and I think it's a big kind of step in the right direction for the club, to be honest with you, and bringing in a man like Brendan Rodgers, like you said, who isn't going to be a yes man, you know, allowing him to bring in his own backroom staff, I think that's quite crucial. Another
thing as well, Jim, is you know, he's been really, he's not been sensationalist, but he's been very, very open right away. He's been quick. He's done, right, I want you and you're coming up, because his time's against him, and immediately, you know, the press briefings are now, right, I want a clear out here. They've got 30 odd first team pros. I want roughly 20.
Yeah. Darren, you know the Celtic setup. Do you see this as a change of direction for where they've been going in recent seasons?
I think it's a marquee signing, and that's what Celtic needed. They did it. It was just under Tony Mowbray, was it? They brought in Robbie Keane, and it was, as much as it was to add to the quality on the pitch, it was to put people back in seats again. And straight away, I think there's been reported Celtic have sold a number of season tickets off the back of it. That's why Brendan Rodgers they've gone for it. I fully believe if Celtic had have been flying last year and they were going for a new manager, it would have been a cheap option, but they've had to push the boat out, spend money, and they've spent big money. And I think, as Jim's saying, he's not a yes man. He'll be expecting a budget now to go and sign a few players and also let a few players go. But it was imperative they got a big name in, and I don't think out there was a bigger name than Brendan Rodgers.
And John, interesting, you know, Darren says they've got the big name, it's cost them a lot of money, but from the fans' point of view, apart from winning football, they'll also be looking for a very attractive, entertaining and attacking, some would say, the Celtic style.
Yeah, I think Brendan Rodgers will come in and ultimately play the Celtic way. I think that's what we'll get.
That's interesting. Play the Celtic way, or is the Celtic way the Brendan Rodgers way, do you think?
Yeah, well, I think Brendan Rodgers has obviously been... He's moulded his teams all to play in the same style, because when you look at Swansea came in and took the Premier League by storm by playing ultimate football, and it got everyone on side, and for a while Swansea were everyone's favourite team because you used to love watching them, and then he went to Liverpool and tried to do the same thing, but ultimately it maybe never suited Liverpool so much because he never had the personnel, or teams could go to Liverpool and sit in at Anfield and press them in areas which they never really expected to be pressed upon before, whereas now I think he'll go to Celtic. He's spoken already, says he wants to cut his squad from 30 down to 20. I'm not so sure that's maybe about quality, maybe more for spirit, because when you've got, the boys will know as well, when you've got a squad of 30, maybe even more than 20, there becomes a bad feeling about the club, or not about the club, about the dressing room, because those players feel they should be training with the first team every day.
It's impossible from the keep everyone happy.
You can't. I mean, Jim will know from a coaching point of view as well, because he was the first team coach at St Mirren. You can't possibly train with 30 players in the training field every day. Maximum you need, in my opinion, is 18. Because you're not playing 11 aside. You're not playing massive sizes of possession. You're playing small-sided games to keep everyone sharp, and then everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet. I think Brendan will bring in some of his own players. I don't think he'll be allowed to bring in massive amounts of players. I think it'll be 2 or 3, and as Darren says, there may be a marquee signing there.
Well, I think that's an interesting one, Darren, in that the manager, maybe a marquee signing, but can he afford then to bring in a player? Maybe even just the one. I mean, was it social media was talking about Steven Gerrard and people like that coming? I mean, probably not. But can he afford a big one?
No, I would suspect that is the marquee signing, and I think he'll certainly look to bring in decent players. But I'd be surprised if you see a really big one coming. I think Brendan Rodgers was what they went for. They've spent their money, and now I think he's been linked to people like Danny Graham. I think would be a fantastic player up here, but not a marquee, if you like. And I think that's what Celtic need now. They need a squad that'll suit him, his style of football, and let him bring in his own players and let his own players go. I certainly think, going back to exactly what Jim's saying, he will have the run of the club at the minute. Results will dictate how long that stays that way.
Do you know as well? Sorry, I was just going to say, Ryan, I think as well, I think it will all depend on what Rangers do, to be honest with you. The signing of Joey Barton, I think that's a huge step from.
It's always tit for tat, wasn't it? If you've got a big signing, then we'll get a big signing.
Yeah, well, I think Brendan Rodgers was probably lined up a number of weeks ago. He's been out of work obviously since he left Liverpool. But I think if Rangers go and bring in a top striker, if you like, for whatever they can afford, then Celtic have got plenty of money behind them. It all depends on what Peter Lawwell and inevitably what Mr. Desmond decides, because Dermot Desmond can match anyone financially if he really wants to. He's bankrolled Roy Keane in the past, he's bankrolled Robbie Keane in the past, and he'll be bankrolling Brendan Rodgers. It's reported he's getting $2 million a year. There was nobody getting more than $1 million a year at Celtic for a number of years, particularly when Rangers left the league. So if Dermot Desmond decides they want another couple of marquee signings, then he'll bankroll it, no doubt about it.
I think, sorry, one point I was just going to ask the boys there. Brendan Rodgers at his previous club has always had a midfield dictator with Leon Britton and Joe Allen. Joe Allen. Is it Joe Allen? That's Joe Allen at Liverpool.
Yeah.
So he obviously took him from Joe Allen, replaced Leon Britton for a while at Swansea, and then he always had one on the side. He took Joe Allen to Liverpool with him. Never quite worked out. Do you think he'll go and get one at Celtic?
Well, the talks of the Steven Gerrard one, I'm not convinced it's the right route for Celtic to go down. But I mean, his contract over in LA is up in December. I'm pretty sure Steven Gerrard, just to see out his last 6 months or year and a half of football, what better club to go to, and to finish out with a massive club like Celtic after his days at Liverpool. But there's no doubt, John, that he does know the English set, and he'll have major contacts at all the clubs he's been at, the likes of Chelsea and Liverpool. He'll know all the kind of young boys, the academy players at Liverpool that can come up to, look at Patrick Roberts coming up from Manchester City. Liverpool have got a number of really, really good fringe players at the moment that could do with the experience that Patrick Roberts is getting, and no better place for me to go than Celtic.
Hugh, if we cast our mind back perhaps to the 90s, it reminds me a wee bit of the old firm arms race, in that if Celtic signed Chris Sutton for $6 million, Rangers would go out and get Tor Andley-Flo for $12 million, and it's whatever you can do, we can do better kind of thing. Are we getting back into that? Because for a while that couldn't happen.
There'll be still.
I don't mean £6 and £12 million, but
that's gone. I mean, that's gone. And the idea, I always think about Chris Sutton. Chris Sutton came up here on the back of one poor season as a Chelsea striker. This is a guy who played for England, did 1 championships with Blackburn. He had one poor season with a club that didn't suit him, and he came up here. I mean, that wouldn't happen now. Can you imagine Hazard, who's had one poor season, coming up to? It's just impossible now. You're looking at the way of it now is, these guys are now involved in looking for clubs and that. They know what the wages are like. There was a statement the other week that James Morrison, to go to Middlesbrough, was wanting 70 grand a week. Now, I'm not saying he was, because I've got nothing to do with that, but that didn't, my eyebrows didn't raise at that, because that's the kind of money that Premier League players are getting now. The days we used to talk about English Premier League players getting, they're on 30 grand a week. Oh no, the decent ones are on 70. So these days cannot come back.
No, even the top championship clubs, down there. I mean, it's ridiculous, paying £12 million for Jordan Rhodes, who would be, you would imagine, on at least 40 grand a week, and now to go up to the Premiership probably doubles his money. So, the money, we can't compare, you just can't. And those days that you're talking about, the late 90s or whatever, when, both old firm teams were really going at it, and it was fantastic from a fan's point of view, but I think it's a million miles away at the moment, to be honest with you.
I mean, Celtic's best centre forward in recent years, and after the Larsons and the Suttons, who were stellar, is Gary Hooper. Mm-hmm. And Gary wasn't getting a game with Norwich. He's had to go to Sheffield Wednesday, where he's doing really well. But even Gary Hooper, trying to get Gary Hooper back to Celtic.
He came from Scunthorpe.
Yeah, he came from. That's where he came. And he came from there as well, because there was people, for whatever reason, in the Championship didn't fancy him. Everybody was he was scoring a lot of goals for Scunthorpe, but people for some reason didn't fancy him. And then Lenny took his chance on him. But even at Sheffield Wednesday, much will he be on the Sheffield Wednesday?
30 grand a week, I'd say. Yeah. At least 30 grand a week, yeah.
Darren, we spoke about Brendan Rodgers at Liverpool. Ultimately, that ended in failure. Why was that the case? Was it the wrong man at the right club, or the other way around, or what? Because it was like he was the man to bring back the question, wasn't it?
I'd question, was it a failure? I think Liverpool are a massive club.
Spent a lot of money, didn't they?
Yeah, he did, but everyone in the Premier League spent a lot of money. So he came within... a game of winning. For me, look at Liverpool last year. I know Klopp has kind of got them going again, but Liverpool, he didn't really fail at Liverpool. He didn't win the league. He didn't win a cup either, did he? No, but Liverpool are where they are. They expect to be at the top of the league, but they're nowhere near it.
Don't forget Suarez as well.
Suarez was a big
challenging for the title. They never challenged for the title in years.
So I think Brendan Rodgers, I think he's the best appointment Celtic could have got. Even with people like David Moyes mentioned, Brendan Rodgers was the one.
I think we need to point out as well, Darren, that it's a fantastic move for Brendan Rodgers, because Brendan Rodgers left Liverpool and his stock wasn't very high. And I mean, the other options for Brendan Rodgers just now were probably back to Swansea. Or possibly maybe Aston Villa in the Championship.
Yeah, it's a absolute basket case of a club.
Absolutely, and neither of them can compete, fan base wise, and obviously he's got the temptation of the Champions League up here as well. So I think as much as it's a great appointment by Celtic, it's a fantastic move for Brendan Rodgers too.
Well, we've got a man on the line who will know Brendan Rodgers, and that is Harry Redknapp. Good afternoon to you, Harry.
Hi, you lads, how you doing?
Well, that's great, Harry. We've got Hugh McDonald, and we've got John Rankin, Dara D, and Jim Goodwin in the studio as well. Harry, we were talking talking about Brendan Rodgers there, Harry, and I said you will know him. Is this a good move for him to Celtic?
Yeah, I think it is a great move, and I couldn't agree more. Brendan Rodgers with Suarez, fantastic. Without him, that's football. I mean, he'll be as good as the players he's got at his disposal, really. If he's got a good group of players at Celtic, he's one of the biggest clubs in the world. I remember playing out in the States many years ago against Rangers, and suddenly there was 25,000 people came up from Canada and all over the place to watch them play. That is the support. Rangers, Celtic, two of the biggest clubs in the world, in my opinion, still. Even though they're not in the biggest league, they've still got incredible pull around the world. So I think it's a great move for Brendan.
And what kind of football will he bring to Celtic, do you think?
Well, I'm sure he'll try to play the way he had his teams playing at Swansea. They'll play out from the back, they'll pass the ball, and they'll get lots of movement. But again, it depends what player. If he's got people that can't play, then he'll boot it up the field probably. But if he's got people that can play, I'm sure he'll encourage them to try to play from the back, and it'll be risky football, but it'll be with the right people. If they're comfortable on the ball, I'm sure they'll be a success.
Of course, Harry, another big talking point in Scotland this week has been Rangers signing of midfielder Joey Barton on a 2-year deal. He joins as a free agent after turning down new terms at Burnley. Of course, you had him at Queen's Park Rangers. There's lots of stories and lots of people will tell you lots of things about Joey. How did you find him?
Yeah, he was good. I mean, I went there. He'd been out on loan the previous year to Marseille. And then his loan was up, and so he came back. I'd recommend it. I mean, Burnley rang me about him. Sean Dyche rang me and asked me about Joey, and I said I would take him. Listen, he has days where he can be, he'll have his mood swings, and if things don't go his way, he can be aggro. But when he wants to win, he's a real student of the game. He loves, he'll watch a million games. He'll be all over the place watching other teams play. He's interested in football. He'll watch every game on TV. As I say, he understands the game. He's got a real good understanding of football and his role in the game. You give him the job to do, and he'll do the job, whether it's defensively from corners. He was as good as anybody defending corners. The amount of balls he headed out of the box when I had him, he did his job in the right position that you put him in. I think he'll be a good player for Rangers. I'm sure he will. I'm sure Michael will get the best out of him. But listen, if things are not going and you don't agree with what you're doing, he'll be telling you, believe you me. And, he don't hold back. He's got strong opinions on the game.
Is he a big personality, a big character in the dressing room?
Very big, very big. He will. If people, some people could go under a bit with him if they're not strong, because he will tell them what he thinks of them and what he thinks of their performance. And as I say, he don't hold back. But he is a leader on the pitch when he's out there and in the dressing room. He's got strong views, but he gets people going. He'll get them before a game. He'll be a big voice in that dressing room, geeing people up, going round to everybody, getting them at it before a game. But if he comes in at half-time and one or two, you've got to be... He's not afraid, as I say, to tell people exactly, point fingers at people who are not doing what he expects them to do.
Of course, he's got a well-known history, Harry, that he says he can't do anything about now. All he can do is look forward. He says he's matured, that he maybe doesn't react now the way that he used to. Would you go along with that? Yeah, oh no, he's a much calmer character now. It's a great move for him, he loves his golf. He's some fantastic golf. Afternoons, when he gets an afternoon spare, he'll be out on them great golf courses you've got in Scotland. I think he'll be a big success there. I'm sure he'll do well. Listen, you've had Rangers, Terry Hurlock, Graham Roberts, not exactly shrinking violet, but under Stewie. So I think Joey, if he's as good as them two, he'll be okay. So I think he'll be a success here. And I see Nico Cranchard's had a mention as well. Yeah.
Nico's a good footballer, fantastic technical player.
What surprised us a wee bit about Joey was that he did have an offer to stay at Burnley and return to the English Premiership. Most players would have jumped at that, but he's decided to come to Scotland. I mean, he's not because of family or home or any other connection. He's just decided to give it a go. Did that surprise you?
Yeah, I must admit, I thought, he looked forward to playing in the Premier League again next year with Burnley, and having worked so hard and being such a big part of their team this year and getting them up. I think, he ended up as player of the year at Burnley. But as I say, Celtic, it's a big pool, big club, and maybe just felt, it's a chance for me to go and Rangers a big club, it's a big pool next year with the Old Firm games again. Even I'm looking forward to them games. I mean, they're going to be fantastic, and I certainly would love to come up there at some stage and watch the game. It'd be a great atmosphere.
Harry, seeing your career, were you ever given the opportunity to maybe come up and work in Scotland? And if you had the opportunity, even in the future, would you ever consider it? So I know it's a long commute for you,
Yeah, I would have done it. But nothing ever really came up. I know Dermot Desmond very well. He was at Celtic. I know Dermot, but no, the opportunity never really came up. And but no, it's if it had done, certainly it would have been something that would have interested me. I watch all the games. I'm lucky now with the TV. I'll get this football games from Scotland. I'm watching them on the box, and as I say, I think next year is going to be a really exciting year with the big two back in there. It's going to be great again.
Harry, it's been a delight talking to you. I gather you've come off the beach in Dubai to take this call. Is that right?
I'm in Dubai. I know. I'm sitting there. Yeah, I've had a couple of days away with my wife, and the weather's been fantastic. And so it's been a nice short break. Back home, ready for the Euros. Looking forward to the Euros. It's a shame Scotland are not in there.
Well, listen,
So
that's our big shame as well. But just before we let you go, Harry, England at the Euros, some people say this could be their year. It's 50 years since the World Cup.
I've said, I think it's a good squad. I think we've got good young players. I think Dele Alli and Harry Kane are two fantastic players. The two lads from Tottenham, I think they're going to be real big, players in the Euros. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Welsh. We've got some good players, Gareth Bale, and so the Irish as well. Martin O'Neill in there with the Republic's going to be interesting. And the job that Michael O'Neill did in Northern Ireland, I just thought was incredible. For me, he was the coach of the year in any level. It's amazing job he did take in Northern Ireland to the finals.
Harry, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon.
Cheers, lads.
Watch that sun out there, it does get very hot.
Don't worry, I've got 50, 75 on. I'm okay.
Thanks again, Harry. Bye for now.
Boys.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
That's Harry Redknapp on the line. They're principally talking to us there about Brendan Rodgers and Joey Barton. Darren, Joey Barton, what impact is he going to have on the game up here?
I don't know, but talking about the money down in England, if you thought the best team in the league was Burnley and the best player, well, he was voted by the fellow players, been the best player in that team, I think it's some coup to get him to come up to Scotland. So I think it's a massive signing. I think last year when he was without a club and I heard him speaking about himself, he speaks very highly of himself, but he backed it up. So I think he's a massive sign. He'll be a big influence in the dressing room if he can work with someone like Kenny Miller. I think the two of them will be the kind of leaders in the dressing room, and it's probably something Rangers needed. And I think he's a very good player. He's shown it last year, and it'll be a big signing for Rangers.
Jim, you might have to mark his card on referees in Scotland.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure they'll know more about him than I will. But now, listen, I think he's a fantastic signing. I really do. And if he had the opportunity to stay at Burnley, which I'm a bit sceptical about, to be honest with you, but if he did, then fair play to him. For choosing to come up here. I know. The two boys beside me here would love the opportunity to play in the English Premier League, as would every manager and other footballer in the Scottish Premier League. So he's chose to go the other way, which is great for our game, I think. He's a big name. He's a decent footballer. I think he's a better footballer than people give him credit for, to be honest with you. He's got a bit of a reputation for getting in about people, but he can certainly play. So it's a great signing for Rangers.
Will his reputation go before him, do you think, when he gets on the field, John?
I don't think so. No, I think it'll be intimidating for a lot of players when you go on the pitch and you see him, and you've obviously heard about and read about him for long enough to realise what he's about. What's interesting was Harry said he comes in and he tells players exactly what he thinks of them. That's a dying breed for me now. Yeah. You don't get a lot of players that will come in and read their eye act and tell someone they need to get their finger out, they're not doing enough. You don't get that. A lot of the younger players need an arm put round them and told that, listen, you're doing this really well, but we need you to work a wee bit better on this and different things. But it would be interesting to see how the younger ones cope with someone of that stature and that personality coming in and telling them exactly what they think of him. But I mean, Jim's obviously questioning why he's come up here. He's 34 this year. He's got a 2-year deal. What's he going to do? For me, what's he going to do at Burnley? He's going to go and fight relegation to try and stay in the Premiership. By all means, I know it's the biggest league in the world and it's probably the best one to watch, but he's coming up here, he's going to challenge for another title. He's got the chance of maybe playing the Champions League if they win the title, and he's got a 2-year deal which takes him to 36.
I think an option of a third even.
Yeah, so that for someone at 34, I think that's a great proposition.
Hugh, do you see him lasting the pace up here?
Oh yeah, I think he's a decent. I agree with you. One of the things I think he's really bad at is being a hard man on the pitch. I just don't think he is. He's a kid on one. He gets into trouble with wee late tackles and niggly stuff. But to portray him as someone, some kind of midfield enforcer is not the case. I mean, he's played with really good clubs at a good level. He's a good player. I think he'll be. He's been great in the press. He's come out and said, "I want to be the best player in Scotland." He'll be up there. He's a bona fide English Premier League player coming up here. I'm interested. I think he'll be fascinating for the Scottish game as well, because he's not taking a step back with the press. He's come out with all this stuff. I'm the best player, and I'm this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do the next thing, which is great. I love sportsmen that do that. Put it out there. But I'm really interested. I think, like John said, I'm really interested in this dynamic in the dressing room, John.
Yeah.
If I don't know what it's like now. You guys do. You guys live in that environment, but I don't know how receptive our dressing rooms to that kind of guy coming in and shouting and screaming, and B, how receptive are management to having you usurping a Davy Weir, you usurping a Mark Warburton wants, to take, say, Barry Mackay into a corner and say, listen, do this, do that, and then you might have. I just think that's a really interesting one.
I think Mark Warburton knows exactly what he's getting with Joey Barton, and I think he's probably thinking he needs that character in the dressing room. Obviously, his football abilities, speak for themselves, but he's obviously identified him as somebody that can manage the dressing room for him, if you like. He might not have been getting that from others in there. Maybe he does, I don't know, but I would imagine Lee Wallace would be quite a vocal character in there. Kenny Miller as well, and adding Joey Barton, that I think it's I actually have more respect for managers that sign people like that, because you need different opinions, and if somebody's going to question, like Harry Redknapp said there, if Mark Warburton or Davy Weir are doing things that he doesn't agree with, he's gonna pipe up and let him know that he doesn't agree with it.
I'm with Jim. I love that type of character.
Yeah, but I think managers as well. I think it shows you the kind of character Mark Warburton is, because he's not afraid to have that dynamic in the dressing room. And I think to be successful in any club or any business for that matter, you can't always have little yes men that'll sit in the corner and do as you say. You've got to have people that push the boundaries every now and again.
Darren, in your own experience, your own career, in the dressing rooms, who have been the strong characters? Who have been the ones that you must say might come in and read the riot act head of the manager?
Neil Lennon was one. I think John's spot on though. I think it's a dying breed. Footballers are a lot more sensitive than they used to be. I've had a few. Scott Brown has obviously won them. There's been plenty I've played with that would do, but I think it is a dying breed. I think it could go both ways. I think it's very important that Joey Barton trains the right way and plays the right way, and as long as he's setting the standard, then his words will do the talking. Where if you've got a player coming up here to wind down, if you like, and he's shouting at everyone, it works differently. But I get the impression from Joey Barton he's as hungry as ever. He'll train the right way. I heard about Mark Warburton speaking about Kenny Miller. He's the hardest trainer. I've played with Kenny and I'd go with that. So when he's then telling the players what to do and he's reading the riot act, well, he's the one leading by example as well. So it's important he leads by example on the pitch rather than just off it. But I think he's a massive signing. I think he'll do very well.
John, could he be the difference for Rangers?
He could be. He certainly could be. He's got that in him to lead by example, as Darren says, and I think players will quickly follow him because he's that type. He's a leader first and foremost, and they've got him and Kenny Miller in the team. I think they need another type of character at the back. If I'm being completely, a centre back along that, and that could be the difference along the spine of the team. I think that's what the line Mark Warburton's going down at the moment, an experienced spine of the team. And if we can get that, but as I said, I think Joey Barton's a fantastic leader. I think it'd be great for Rangers. I think he'll come in. But also Harry Redknapp says he's kind of calmed down these days. I wonder what it'll be like in the first Old Firm game when there's 15,000 Rangers fans there and he's in the wrong end of a bad tackle. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he reacts, but that's the type of characters I like to watch in the game.
Listen, I think he's a great signing, but I certainly think Rangers need another 3 or 4. Definitely. And centre half, I think defensively is a major concern for them just now. And they probably could do with another striker. Kenny Miller is going up the levels again, and he's not getting any younger. So I definitely think they need, right through the spine of their team, I think they need at least another centre half, maybe even 2, because I wasn't convinced with the 2 boys they had there. And they definitely need another striker.
Hugh, do you think the signing of Joey Barton is perhaps, apart from Rangers thinking they've got a very good player for their money, is that it could also be used as something to lure or to bait other players to come north with?
Oh yeah, I mean, I find nothing wrong to say about the Barton signing. I just think it's a great signing. I think this is a good player. I think it's a great coup for Rangers. This is a good player coming up who, and I agree with John, I don't think he's coming up to relax as well. I think he's coming up to play and have the golf courses, etc. But I think he's come up to experience. He's made an awful lot of money in his career. So coming up here for the experience of a Rangers Celtic game, maybe Europe eventually as well, which is not unthinkable. So and it does lure other people. It does look, and it's good. I think it would be I don't know, these guys know better than me, but if I was sitting in a dressing room at Rangers and Joey Barton was walking in, I would be saying to myself, I'm going to try and learn from this guy. This shows that the club's going in a direction. If I was a young player, I'd be sitting saying, I want to try and learn from this guy. I think it ticks every box, and it also ticks a box over season tickets as well, which Darren alluded to earlier, and that's really what we've got to remember in this. This is a business. This is why everybody's in it. Everybody's in it to sell season tickets, and that's what Barton's done.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Radio Scotland.
We're going to talk about the Champions League final last night in Milan's San Siro Stadium. Darren, what did you make of it?
It was a game of two halves, if you want to call it that. The first half, Atletico tried to do what they always do, sit in, press, but really let Real Madrid dictate the game, and it was very, very comfortable for Real Madrid at half time. Second half was just completely different. They came out and they could have gone and won the game in normal time. It obviously ends up going to penalties, and I think the penalties were fantastic actually. I don't buy into this lottery and all that. Penalties are skill, technique, bottle, and both sets of players had it, but obviously Real Madrid came out on top.
Yeah, it was 5 good penalties from Real,
fantastic,
wasn't it?
Yeah, and I imagine, I don't understand any team going into a final that wouldn't be practicing every day, and they certainly looked, both sets of teams to be fair, looked like they've been practicing them.
And Jim, when you get to extra time, you get that feeling so many times, don't you, that this is going to penalties?
Yeah, well, I called it before the game. I seen a draw written all over the game, and I seen it going that way, and I actually thought Atletico would win on penalties. That's what I was hoping for anyway. But as the commentator said there, big occasion, it's all set for Ronaldo, isn't it? And he drives me mad when I'm watching him because he hardly kicked the ball last night.
Do you think he was fit?
Well,
I thought he was injured, Jim.
Yeah, well, he possibly. I mean, obviously, the run up to the game, there was talks of him not training and missing sessions, and they were trying to put out that it was a dead leg. But no, certainly, and I think there was probably 1 or 2 questions over a number of them fitness-wise. But they played a hell of a lot of football, these boys. Right through the season. And the last thing they could have been doing was 120 minutes of football. You see them all cramping up. But that
was refreshing. I thought, seeing Bale cramping
up. Absolutely,
yeah. Chance.
Yeah, but now listen, the standard of the penalties was absolutely phenomenal, and I mean, you can only but feel for Juan Fran, hitting the post, and I'm pretty sure he didn't sleep too much last night thinking about it.
Now, Hugh, we have to talk about Zinedine Zidane.
Yep.
It becomes one of that rare breed. I think there's only 7 of them that have actually won the European or the Champions League.
And the first Frenchman to have done it as a manager as well, which is a kind of strange stat as well. You would have thought there'd
be
think
of all the good ones having out there,
you would think there'd be a French manager down the years who'd won Champions League, but I think I'm right in saying he's the first.
And in that strange way of Real Madrid, Benitez binned just a few months ago, bringing a man fairly untried at that level, and then suddenly he produces the Champions League.
Yeah, but I think there's an interesting thing. I'll be interested in the guys who are at the coalface of this. I'll be interested to see this. That now, I think that's always been the Madrid model. Madrid got rid of Ancelotti. They got rid of Del Bosque after winning. And they use managers as basically, you're an employee. You come in here. It's not like a manager comes in here and goes through the whole club like Fergie does, is in charge of the laundry and knows the laundry, but they're just there to do the first team. And see if they don't do the first team, they're gone. They just go, we'll get somebody else. And there's that. And I think that attitude is slowly coming into a lot. You see it at Watford, for example, in England. Get rid of Kike Flores this year because they just want something better. There's just a guy coming in to manage the team now. But Zidane, the good thing Zidane's got for him is if you've got Real Madrid, you've got great players. So all you have to do, really, and it sounds all you have to do, all you have to do is come up with a system. But if you're Zidane, you don't have to come up with any respect. No. You're not going to have to earn any respect in the dressing room.
He's idolised by everybody, isn't he?
You're not walking in there like, for example, a Mourinho at the beginning of Mourinho's career.
Or even a Benitez.
You coming in as, you are Zinedine Zidane, I will listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
And even though you're Zinedine Zidane, presumably one day you know that because of that system and the way it works, that you will be showing the exit door in favour of somebody else just coming in at a very strange time.
I think if he hadn't won last night, I think there would have been huge questions over who was going to be next Real Madrid. I think that's bought him another 6 months anyway, which is quite mad, isn't it?
We talked to the Ramon Calderon, the president of Real Madrid, and he said what that gives you, and a European Cup one gives you, is 4 days of grace. It gives them 4 days before everybody say, well, wait a minute. what's happening with Ronaldo? Is Ronaldo going to stay? Then the whole thing starts again. Is Bale any good? Does Ronaldo go on with Bale? And then the whole thing starts again.
And last night as well, which was quite clear, the strength and depth of the Real Madrid squad is really, really poor. I mean, you think about a club of that size with the amount of money that they throw around transfer window to transfer window. I mean, they need 5 or 6 really, really good players. And again, Ronaldo's not getting any younger again. So, Zidane will be, I'm pretty sure there's a director of football and everything there that will be bringing in players, but he'll be judged on that next season.
Hugh, it's going back maybe, 60 years in the mid-50s since
remember it well.
They went, since they went on this, they won the first 5 in a row, didn't they? Including Hampden, of course, in 1960. Is that what has earned them this expectation, these demands, this system of failure and you're out very quickly? Or is it... it doesn't happen at every club.
No, but Real Madrid, I had the pleasure of talking to Calderon, who's the former president, this week, and he said, I talked to my son for my 25th anniversary of taking the first game I took him to the big time, Stirling Albion v Montrose, right? 25 years later he took me to Real Madrid v Seville, and I was sitting watching Real Madrid v Seville. Ronaldo had scored the hat-trick. It was 7-3 for Real Madrid. Bale had scored 2. It was just what's happening in this part. There's 2 guys in front of me shouting and bawling, just like throwing nuts and all that. And I asked my son and his mates speak about Spanish. I said, what are they going on about? He says they're slaughtering Ronaldo, absolutely slaughtering him.
Just scored a hat-trick.
And he's just scored the hat-trick. He says he's not tracking back, which he wasn't actually, but he's Ronaldo. But anyway, so I said to Calderon, what's that about? He said, that is it. He said, winning is everything. They don't care, and even sometimes says winning's not enough. This is what this club's all about. He says, and that's what he went back to. 3 or 4 days of grace. This will happen. They'll have their celebration tonight in Madrid. A couple of days, and by Wednesday, people will be saying, is Ronaldo off to Man U? Is Ronaldo good enough? Or he was rotten in the final? Or Bale, what's Bale doing for us? It's just ridiculous.
It must drive all the other players mental as well, because the only 2 that anybody's interested in is Bale and Ronaldo in particular. And then, the game last night, I thought Ramos was just immense, wasn't he? And even Pepe beside him, who I'm not his biggest fan, I thought he was fantastic. And then the wee boy, is it Casemiro in the middle of the park?
Well, he's changed everything.
Class.
Well, that's the only decision Zidane really made. Zidane came in and said, listen, there's got to be some balance in this team, and he put Casemiro in the centre of his midfield 3.
I thought he was the best player in the park last night.
He's given them that kind of balance. He dropped Isco and he played Casemiro, and that's a big decision that he's made.
We've got to say goodbye to Jim Goodwin. Jim, many thanks, and good luck with the search in the next, hopefully, week or 2 or 3.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, hopefully, like I say, have a decision to make in the next couple of weeks. But thanks again for having me. I always enjoy the show. And
don't go too far away.
I'll see you again soon, no doubt.
Don't take a Ukraine club or something like that. I mean,
no.
Stay close so we can...
I'm not as brave as Darren.
So we can chat to you. Jim, many thanks for your time this afternoon. Darren and John staying on for just a wee while yet, because we've still got a bit more football to talk this afternoon, because the Hull City manager, Steve Bruce, says he'll be speaking to the club's owner about his future and looking for assurances they're all moving in the right direction. Bruce made his comments after Hull beat Sheffield Wednesday 1-0 in the Championship playoff final at Wembley to win promotion back to the Premier League. Well, one man who was a huge part of the win yesterday was Scotland international Robert Snodgrass, who joins us on the line now. Good afternoon to you, Robert.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Well, I'm okay, but you must be absolutely euphoric. Tell us about yesterday, because that's such a big game and you were part of it.
Yeah, I think everybody obviously knows that, getting up through the playoffs is the best way, but, that's coming for lads that have went and done it until we experience it. Yesterday, I think, obviously, you realise that, they're not wrong. It was, from start to finish, as soon as the final whistle goes, and then long into the night through celebrations with your family and all your teammates, and it was from start to finish. It was probably one of the best days of my career.
And what an achievement from you and the whole club and manager Steve Bruce to do it straight away. I mean, to bounce back, they say that's one of the hardest things to do in football, is to go down, get into that division where so many teams then get lost. You've come straight back up.
Yeah, well, it's testament to obviously the backroom staff and the players, because people just think that because you've got obviously decent players in the team that you can go and obviously get the job done, but that's not the case. You still need to go and obviously deliver, try and obviously beat the teams that are in front of you. And a lot of times we came up against a 4-5-1 formation. It was very, very hard to break down in certain stages, but I think over the last few months where the first chance, and the main aim was to get automatic promotion. And we fell short over the last few months, but we knew obviously we had to regroup, stick together, and as I say, don't obviously live any regrets and let the second chance pass you by. And as I say, we've done it, and we're back in the Premier League.
And for you personally, Robert, you must be absolutely thrilled after that long layoff with injury that, you suffer so much on the sidelines, but to get back on the pitch and be part of yesterday must mean so much to you.
Yes, you sit there and you think at the early parts of the sort of rehab, and you think, am I going to come back for this, or different things, and there is a little bit of doubt that creep in, but as a man, a character, you need to puff your chest out and do the long hours of rehab. Sometimes you're not leaving the training ground, the swimming pool is 6 o'clock and different things like that at night, and you think to yourself, and all those sort of hours of rehab and long nights, and with these obviously physios and rehabilitation guys right by your side and doing it with you, I can only thank them so much for the bottom of my heart for obviously sticking by me through the journey. But when I came back, it was a case where I've got a job to do here. I'm not just here to make up the numbers. I'm here to get in and help my teammates to try and achieve promotion. And as I say to you, I played the last maybe 25 games, and as I say, I've not looked back.
I have to say, you didn't look too happy when you were subbed.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is happy when they get subbed, to be honest. And that's now part and parcel of football. Sometimes you live with that sort of now, but you maybe shouldn't have done it. But listen, nobody's happy about getting subbed, especially in front of 80,000 people. I felt as if I still had energy left in the locker to try and help my teammates get over the line. And as I say, that's why the manager's in the hot seat. He's the top man, and that's why he makes those decisions. So you respect that. We had obviously we've got a great relationship, and we had a laugh and a joke about it and a beer. And as I said to you, we celebrated together, because that's why we got the job done. We done it as a team, not as individuals.
Well, I say we've got Darren Adee and John Rankin in the studio with me. I'm sure they want to pass on the congratulations to you.
Well done, Snods. Snods, I'm wondering how you're sober enough to take this phone call.
well, I'll be honest with you, I've got a beer in one hand and one in the other.
Good man. Listen, Snods, it's brilliant, mate. I'm delighted for you.
John?
Thanks very much. Cheers, mate.
Snoddy, congratulations. Just one question. How's Andy Robertson this morning after missing the chance? That I was texting him last night, he was saying he was obviously disappointed. How is he today?
I'll be honest with you, we had a laugh and a joke about it, but you know what, the young kid, he's actually in those positions. That's the most important thing for me. That's what I said to him. I said, don't lose that. I says, because that is what's got you in the first place, the sort of drive and ambition to be in that sort of area.
Aye, for a left back, yeah.
Now, John, they're sort of they're the most attacking options, and he fits that bill. And as I said, hopefully he stays with us, but I think it'll be very, very hard to keep a hold of him.
Yeah. Robert, it seems that Steve Bruce is looking for some assurances now, because is it the ownership of the club that's maybe in a wee bit of doubt?
Well, there's a lot of talk about new takeovers and new owners and different things like that. So I think any new owners, you've got to look at his record for Hull City alone, never mind his playing record and his experience he brings. I just think he's, as a man, I think he fits the bill. So I think he'll probably be sitting and having obviously talks with whoever it is that's in charge. But the owners now, obviously the old fella isn't too well, so we want to obviously wish him all the best, and whoever it is that's taking the club forward, we've got to do the biggest task, and that's staying in the Premier League, because that is the hardest job, especially the money that's flying about next year and the managers that are getting brought in. It'll be very exciting, but we want to stay there.
That's exactly what I was going to say to you, that having done the hard bit and getting back into the Premiership, the big job, of course, is to stay there. We saw Bournemouth come up and stay last season, but it didn't work for Norwich. So obviously, will he have to spend much money, do you think? Do you need several more players?
Well, I think with the money that's going about next season and the budgets and different things, I think you'll see a lot of that next season. Well, obviously new signings and big money, but who's going to be the right man to kind of take us forward? I'll be honest, I don't think you can look by Steve Bruce. He knows the division, he knows the players. So whoever it is, as I said to you, we need to get it tied up as soon as possible. And as I said, they'll probably start the earlier the better for obviously recruiting. whatever players we bring in, because as I say, it's going to be a long hard season again, and as I say, one that I hope it's a successful one, and many more good teams ahead.
Just before we let you go, Robert, of course Scotland playing tonight, got a friendly against Italy, one coming up against France, and I suppose the fact that you're back in the English Premier League next season, you'd love to get yourself re-established in the Scotland squad.
Yeah, well, that's it. When I first came back, that was one thing I always wanted as well, especially missing out the Euros. You can only sit there and watch as a fan, and it's very disappointing. We just fell short a little bit. But I thought out of that group, I wanted the Irish to do it. I know Darren's sitting there, but I did want the Irish to do it because I know half of the squad and terrific lads. And I think I was delighted for them. When you sit back as a fan, you just think what if if you were in the squad and maybe things may have been different. But I thought the lads were terrific through the campaign. But I want to try and establish myself and get back in. Obviously the manager's plans and a great return because we get a good one against Czech Republic. So as I say, I'll return for my game against France. So hopefully I can be part of that and get a good result.
That's it. Thanks for listening. There'll be another podcast later today reviewing Scotland's friendly match against Italy. You can keep up to date with the latest news and interviews at our website bbc.co.uk/sportscotland.